Now I'm looking over the magazines. We got the mystery ship article, Forgotten Air Racers, and it just reminds me, I had heard through the grapevine Danny Banjak flew his 30s Air Racer, and we might be able, if the weather does break in the next couple of weeks, connect with him or at least see it in real life. Maybe coming. But the weather is it's our best friend today, but it's our worst enemy at other times. And as you can imagine, while we're up here freezing and trying to get some painting done, Rich Oliver's down there flying every day. Every day. Kills me. Now in the last couple of days we've had some just fabulous weather. It's been way over 30 degrees. And we've gotten the red on every part except the wing. And one thing we've enjoyed too, and I want to mention this again, we've been checking out the DVDs Frank Carlisle sent, and I'm not going to put too much of this on. Frank Carlisle has sent us up some nice DVDs of converting his smoothie over to electric. We've got 4 or 5 of them now already, and they're all pretty good. So if you're an electric guy, these might be something you want to contact Frank about. And anyway, oh, I just heard my name. Anyway, the next thing is we're going to open that envelope that came from Richard and look at the tests for the decals. Again, these are just some of I put these on the previous thing, but I hadn't watched them yet. Now that I've watched them, there's good information on these. And I know there's so many people interested in electric, this is something you might want to just contact Frank. He's in Pampa, Frank Carlisle. And in the beginning, the first ones of these that I got, and these are a later version, he wasn't interested in selling them. I don't know if that's changed, but of course it's a phone call away and you can find out all the options. And I certainly think there's going to be a lot of electrics in everybody's future, so the sooner we learn about it, the better. And I want to thank Frank for sharing this with us. We've shared our DVDs with him, and I think that's the essence of all good modeling, is the sharing. As soon as I finish my coffee, we're going to open that envelope. It just came in from Rich Oliver, and I'm hoping there's some decals in there. And if there isn't, Rich, you're in big trouble. So let's see what Rich has for us. I'm always excited about getting envelopes and boxes from Rich Oliver. Oh, it's got instructions. See, that's going to take half the fun out of it if I have clues. Okay, we're going to take this apart and see what we got. Well, there's our test sheet that he graciously gave us. Now what we're going to do is, there's a little, we only need to just do a small test. We don't need to, but the resolution on this is awesome. I don't know if you can see the resolution. Now both John Pothier has worked on files, Elliot made some files, Richard has files, Dave Midgley has files, John Pothier has made a lot of been a lot of help with making files, making them bigger and smaller, lettering things. But this is going to be our test. And I wanted to do a real valid test. So, you know what I'll do just to, and this is the other one John did. Boy, that looks nice. These are really crisp. And if these work out, as I hope they do, boy, this will, in essence, save an awful lot of time. Maybe some weight, I don't know. These are the ones that Rich has done for his. Look at this, the Pampa logo, Pennzoil, Goodyear. Anyway, I'm excited. I want to read this, and this is unusual for me, but I will read the instructions, and then we'll figure a way we can do a couple of tests today. And so, but we're new to this, so if this doesn't work out in the first shot, it'll mean some phone calls, some more tests, or whatever. And when this is all done, then I'll want to make up the real item. Now sometimes you never realize, and I guess part of this is it's a sad story. It was I think about 30 years ago that I had built this plane for John Gajewski, or helped him build it. I don't really remember. John has since had some real issues with diabetes and is for all purposes blind now. A couple of years ago he called me. He was blind. He couldn't even be involved in modeling in any way. So he gave me a couple of planes. I had passed all of them on except for this one. This one was called Rose. And Rose, because I had worked on it and I had trimmed it and I had used it and I don't know what. I felt an attachment to it and I thought, well, we're going to use this for something. And we wound up using it for running 4-strokes. We wound up using it for running Rich Oliver's motor, Zetron testing. It was a Zetron prototype plane. We got so much use out of it. And who knew, years later, in the year 2006, it's now going to be a decal test plane. So step one is I'm going to clean this whole plane off with some Windex. And maybe I'll just pick a spot on the bottom to lay out some of these decals in various different ways and see which ways seem to work the best. Hard to believe how the different paths you go down in life, and all of a sudden, hey, you're back where you started 30 years ago. Now in the instructions it says they're best applied over smooth surfaces, so it could be that one of the things we're going to learn is that we can like sand out with 1200 or buff out or prepare the area where the decal is going to go. And I understand why, because if you're going over a rough area, the lack of thinner tends to bleed underneath it. But now what I need to do, and I know a lot of this is redundant, a lot of this is stuff that maybe people would be inclined to say, well, why did you even bother doing that? The first thing I want to do is take, without even coating these, now you're supposed to coat these with Krylon. I don't have some yet, but I'll have some by tomorrow. Then you're supposed to use Solvaset. Solvaset sets the decal. Then I want to see if I can spray on or airbrush on or whatever some Brodac dope. And the trick is always, it's to get the first couple of coats of dope, just like Letrasets, that you're not melting the decal. So I want to see how quickly these melt to begin with. See, the easiest thing is to take a little one like this, just cut one out, I'll spray a little bit of dope over it, and let's see how quickly it melts. Then the next one we'll do with the Solvaset, the next one with Krylon. We'll have a bunch of tests by the end of this session, or by the end of this next couple of days anyway. But and just to make a little story real quick, when I used to spray Imron in the 80s, the DuPont rep said there's no way you can spray lacquer over Imron. It's not possible. And I came up with a way of doing it. Now, yeah, what it means is it's not easy to do it. It doesn't mean nothing is impossible. Well, I want to see just how possible and how practical this is, because this opens up the door. You imagine doing a Spitfire and you didn't have to mask out the roundels, but you could build 2 Spitfires. Anybody's ever masked out a roundel or a Stars and Bars or Marines or something, you know that's a giant part of the plane. If you can knock some of that off. So we're going to do our tests. So test 1, we know the water melts the ink from the inkjet. So now that's a little a little bit of information we know. Now we could try coating one of these with, as they recommend, with Krylon. But until I see this, I don't know how this is going to really work out. Here comes the decal. Now see, the inkjet stuff, and I'm looking at it, the inkjet stuff is on the film, so the Krylon would seal it in. Now I wonder if Brodac dope will seal it in. That's another part of it. Well, we're going to find out very quickly here. Now you may think a lot of these tests are redundant, or I'm just spinning my wheels here, and maybe I am, but what I did right now, I had clear in a gun. I just cut out the decal, sprayed on a dry coat of clear with the ordinary spray gun, just to see, and I'm going to let this dry before I go any further. If this dries 10-15 minutes from now, and I can release it, now if I can't, I'll try 2 coats of dope, or 3, because I know the Krylon works. What I'm trying to do is up the bar, not get on the bar. I know the Krylon works. Let's see if Brodac dope works. And so far, it doesn't have any indication that it's melting anything. So we're going to give this, just put this down a little bit here. Let it dry, and we'll come back to this when it's dry. And if you think I'm kidding, with a plane like the Spitfire, if you could do all this lettering and all these things with decals, it would just be absolutely amazing. It would just be a time saver like you couldn't believe. Now imagine a Miss Ashley, all that lettering and all that stuff that's on Miss Ashley. If you could just do, it'd be unbelievable. But if it does work, what it means is everybody that's building models will have the choice of doing it. Doesn't mean you can't do it the old-fashioned way, but you have the choice of doing it if you choose it. Now the next thing is I'm going to do the same thing as this is drying. This is the Krylon Crystal Clear Fixative. And because Karen does crafts, she has several versions of this, and I don't know which one's going to be the best. I'll cut out another decal, put the little test on Krylon, and I can line them up like little soldiers until I find whichever way is going to work best for me. Again, this is, if we could find a way, the reason I like to use the Brodack dope so much, because then everything is dope. I don't have any issues with, oh, that isn't dope, that's another material. Somewhere down the road loosening up. But if this works, and it certainly worked for Richard, well, but I'd still like to do the test. I'm just an old-fashioned modeler. I like to do all the tests myself. And even though somebody comes along and says, oh yeah, this is the way, I always like to do it myself. It's just part of being a stubborn old guy. Next one is going to be the Krylon. Now the third test, I have another Krylon product from Karen's little inventory there, and I thought this would be worth trying. So I'll really, in this test, have 3 different materials to try. And, well, she uses all of these, and she really knows how to get the most out of a lot of these products. One of these, and I don't remember if this is the one they use for when they do chalk artwork, and this sets the chalk. Alright, so we're going to let 3 test pieces dry. Come back to this in probably half an hour or so and get some kind of feel for how this is going to work out. And of course it's best always to test with little parts, not a big giant, whatever the biggest one would be. Okay, this is the first one going down now. Now the problem is, you can see the yellow in the Pennzoil is very transparent. So glad I know what I'm talking about. The color bleeds right through. Now this is the one that we sealed with Brodack dope. This is the first one. Now, second one is done with the Krylon. I'm going to go get this one ready to put on. And when these are all dry, I'll let them dry again another half an hour, and spray a coat of clear on this and see how these all do. But I think this looks like it's going to work fine. Now the problem is the transfer. When you go to put white over red, what's going to happen is it's going to bleed right through. So that may be one of the issues we have to deal with. I'm not sure. But we're sure going to give this a try before we give up. Because I wanted this to be silver, but obviously if I can't do it, I can't do it. But we'll find out. Now, we'll wet these in warm water for 30 seconds. And this is going to be the one that has the Krylon. And the other one will have the fixative, and of course I'll have the video to go back and verify which test is which later on, or in the future, or tomorrow, or whenever. Now the interesting thing is going to be to take one of the yellow ones, and we already did this. Take one of the yellow ones, or maybe I'll take this one here, and see if it goes over, or what I'm going to have to do is paint yellow, and have this go over yellow. Yeah, we're going to find out. Now we're going to try to bleed through here, see what happens. This is clear, so obviously the clear is not going to be a problem. And it's no problem getting dark colors to go over. No, this wouldn't go over black, that's for sure. But anyway, one of the issues, or one of the problems is, on a little decal like this might be fine, but I'm still wondering about this bleed through thing, and I'm not going to really know until I take a part that has that red paint. See, I'm going to have to make a test part here, paint it red, see if it bleeds through, because that red is so bright. I may have to paint one of these elevators red just to see. In fact, while I'm doing dope here, I'm going to try to figure this all out. But anyway, it's a question of 30 seconds, and these just soak right off. And I get the feeling it doesn't really matter. It's not a critical thing what the sealer is, whether it's Brodack dope or these fixative, and there's probably other fixatives. But if all of the fixatives work, then I'd take Brodack dope. I'd say that's what I want. Now we still want to do the Solvaset test, and I don't have Solvaset here yet. Dave is supposed to send me some. So we'll leave some of these go for the Salvaset. But I can already see that one of the big issues is going to be the bleed through. And when these things bleed through, that's going to be critical on the lettering or on the yellow. So what I really need to know is, well, again, we're going to find out. I need to paint something on here red. And because this has been such a good test model, well, we're going to find out. In fact, I hate to really paint this. Maybe I should just paint a tin can or something, so we have something that'll bleed, check the bleed through. All right, that's probably all we can do right now until we get the Salvaset and try that. Again, I wish we knew, but you know, the reality is we don't. The reality is I've got to go over the red. Without being able to go over the red, this is not really a useful test. Now the other choice is, and again I'm trying to improvise here, another choice might be to put this over silver, put clear over it, and backmask it. So what I really need, and maybe I ought to start thinking about how to do this, I need a test panel that's silver, and I need a test panel that's red before I really can go any further here. Or before I can go to the level that I want to go to. So what I need to do is look around for something that I can paint and make some silver and some red just to use for a little palette to try this. And I'll look around the shop for something I can paint. So this day ends with, I sprayed a couple of coats of clear over this. It doesn't seem like it affects the ones made with Brodack Dope or the ones with Fixative or whatever, but I still need to do the Salvaset, because the Salvaset will get rid of the little air bubbles and things. It allows the decal to conform more. I know that from model train days. Now the next thing, and I'll do this tomorrow because we're running out of time, I need to see the color bleed through. So what I did, I made up some test panels. And here's some, I just airbrushed some DVD covers as they're drying here. I made a silver one, a couple of red ones, just to get a feel for getting a look at how this is going to work. Well, we'll do it tomorrow because it's pretty much the end of the day, but so far so good with the decal test. And with a lot of other projects going on in the shop, and we've got a lot of mail to take care of today, I don't want to prolong this too long. And we still have to get the test samples from Dave also, so we'll end this today. Now this morning these panels have dried up. They're just ordinary DVD cases. I sprayed them with the exact paint that we've used, and just to see what would happen if we try some of these decal on silver, some of the decals on red. I want to see for the bleed through. This is the second part in my little test. Okay, so what I did with this decal sheet, in fact, let me try the little one first. What I'm looking to see is, what we're looking to see is on the yellow, and especially on the Ferrari yellows, if the red is going to bleed through or if we're going to have to paint it white first. Now there's different paper. There's paper that leaves this white. Now I don't know if this is what Rich was talking about, but again, he ran me several different choices here, and I spoke to Dave this morning, his decals and his test material, and a kit that he bought of how to apply decals. So we're going to look at what that's all about. But in the meantime, I can lay some of these out, wet them with water, and we'll try them on these panels. Now just for our records, both of the sheets that we're going to use today were done with what Richard recommended, even though it looks like the Brodack Dope works exactly the same, but we did use this basically because this is what Richard was using, just to keep some symmetry, or whatever you want to call it, try to keep the learning curve going. So these decals have been coated with this, and they're ready to apply. Now basically we know, or we think we know, that over the silver, and this is silver Brodack Dope, and these are the white background ones. I want to see how much of that silver is going to bleed through. And within the next day or so, we're going to get that decal kit from Dave, and we're going to experiment with that also. But this, now this looks like if you went over silver. Obviously, if you went over white, it'd be no problem at all. But now we're going to do a test. We're going to take one of these and try to go over the red. And if we really were going to use this on a plane, what I would do here is very carefully get out every air bubble possible. Brings back a lot of memories of my days of making plastic models. Okay, so that part of it, we'll let this dry and we'll cut one out and see how the red works out. And I just like to know firsthand. There's something about knowing it firsthand that's a world different than reading it in a magazine. And this one you can actually feel when it just releases, and I just have it in a bowl of warm water. And this is the test. Now how yellow does it get? Now, one of the other choices we're going to wind up having, since we'll have multiples of the decals, is, and one of the things I really need to test. If they think this is, you know, for some reason, even I have to admit, I was kind of prejudiced against using decals, because I always thought, oh, you're going to be able to look at them and tell that they're decals. Well, that's really not the case. This looks like it's going over red pretty well. Okay, now what I did here, and it's a little bit of a mistake here, is I've been pressing this down too hard, and I actually wore through the Krylon. But that's not what we're trying to test. I know that on the real, you know what I'll do on a real one is just use 2 coats of Krylon, or just not press down so much. Okay, now that doesn't look bad. But what I'm thinking would look, see, this is the problem here. I want it to be yellow, and it's, well, it's close. But I'm thinking, now this will be an interesting test. Once this dries up, I'm going to put a coat of clear on this and just put another yellow decal on top of this. And see how to, see, it just never ends. There's always some way to beat the system. And in this case, because I've cut into this black line just a little bit, I can ink around the end when I'm all done with a very thin pen. Anyway, or imagine trying to paint this horse on this lettering by hand. It just wouldn't have that Testarossa, that last little amount that we want. Okay, now this is the next test, and the test is, we want to see, this is lettering that's done on white. But if the white is going to bleed through, now we know the yellow may or may not, because I could look at the white here and tell, maybe I need 2 coats of this, 2 layers or whatever. But I'm going to put one test letter on the silver and one on the red. I just got to wait for this to release. Takes a little second, and is another good little tip: don't force the release. Let it sit in warm water until it's ready. I found out the hard way. I ripped one already, and just got to regain the skills I had as a modeler years ago using decals. That is also another choice, and Richard gave me the information for a vinyl lettering place. I ought to put that on the, before this is over, I remember to put that name and address on. Again, here, I've broken the decal by forcing it. Now see, I can make that better by just being more gentle, or maybe two coats of Krylon, or maybe Brodak Dope is the answer here. Maybe Brodak Dope is a little bit stronger, I don't know. But see, here's what happens. Now, the letters look white, but they're really turning pink. But what I really need to know is when that letter is silver and I go over red, how bad is it? That's the real test of the letter. We would like the lettering to be silver and black when we finally do it. And again, I've laid out what some of the other options are, but doing all these tests, at the end of the next couple of days of these tests, I hope I have a good database. Now in this case, I want to know when I put the next, I'm going to put another decal right on top of this, because I have, of course, a whole sheet here. I can just take out another one, lay it right out there. But this may be one of the ways we can get around it. Once this dries, I'll coat it with clear first. let it dry, and then put the next decal on top. That'll be the test. Okay, and this is the test. Well, the one of the tests that we want to verify that we're going to be successful at. I kind of felt, and I'm not thinking going over silver is never going to be a problem here. Get the bare bubbles out. I don't think this is ever going to be a problem going over silver or going over white. It's going over the red, and once I get silver samples, something with silver in it, we'll be able to evaluate that a little more. Anyway, the next step on this is just I'll let this dry up by the heating vent. As soon as this dries up, and I guess that's about 15 minutes, put a coat of Brodac dope on it, and then we can move on to the next part of the test. Now these tests that already have the clear on them, when I go to put the clear, I'm going to spray a couple more coats of clear on them, and then I'm going to block sand it down probably tomorrow and just see if I can just make that, just what I envision is just go away. Now, we got plenty of material to test with, plenty of choices, and we still don't have the stuff that Dave is sending. So I would hope that very soon, and it's not going to be too long, we're going to really have some information in the database that'll be useful. But again, I want to, if possible, I want to get that kit that Dave has, read up, there may be some tricks in it. Now I remember from train days, when I had HO trains and I used to build the cars, the kits and stuff, always had the decals, and you always use Salvaset, and at the end of it you'd never see what the decals were. So, well, we're trying to steal a little bit of technology from from our friends in the train that do this rather professionally. And just to get an idea of what the temperature's been, it looks like we're going to have a couple of nice days. Some of the ice is actually melting away here, but it's a good day to spray that clear on, and it's going to help our decal test. Now the test for this is going to be, of course, I think I may as well paint the whole thing just like I'm putting on a coat of clear on a plane. Now in theory I should be putting on a real dry coat. I'm getting high risk here because I just want to see if I can melt some of this, or if it's prone to melt from the thinner in the dope. In fact, we're doing a test, let's do a real test. Let's put some material on there, see if we can melt it. If we can, then I know I got to put dry coats on just the same way with Letrosets and canopies. We're going to see when it dries. You know, view of just how much material's on there right now. I'm assuming, and maybe I'm right or wrong, that at least when I've done paint edges, it looks like you can bury a decal in very small amounts of dope. Maybe even 2 or 3 coats, where when you're trying to bury paint lines, there may even be a weight saving to this whole thing somewhere down the road. Now one thing's for sure, absolutely for sure here, if this doesn't melt it, it's not going to melt. Let me try to hang this up. What's going to happen if this doesn't melt? Believe me, this is not going to be a problem. Because that's one of the things that I was concerned with, that the clear would melt the decal. Even without the Salvaset, that doesn't look like that's going to happen. And boy, the white over silver is perfect. You can't fault that at all. It's only going over that red that's going to be somewhat of an issue, I can see, one way or another. But again, that's why it's real helpful doing these tests, and anybody watching this and it can have that information, and of course even better, they can then pass it on so more people can take advantage of the stuff that we're learning. Yeah, that's certainly, if that didn't melt, that wet coat didn't melt it, I think we're safe. I'm going to do the same thing with our test plane and just blow on a few more coats of clear, just as much as I can, just to see if anything there, any of the thinners going down and melting it. A good old test plane. Let's see if we can just get, and I'm not going to try to be too fancy about it. In fact, that's the whole idea here, is not to be too fancy. And ultimately to be able to sand this out and buff it. Now, to be honest, if this were the Testarossa or another plane that took a long time to build, what I would be a lot more cautious. I would put the dope on and let each coat dry more, etc., etc. But let's see. Now I'll give that 4 or 5 more coats intermittently, and then tomorrow or the next day get some 1200 sandpaper, sand it out, give it the old Gorhams. Well, it has the sound of spring out here. You actually can you can hear the birds singing. It's unbelievable. It has turned into being a just a spectacular day. Listening to the birds, waiting for our decal test to end. I guess we'll let that sit overnight though before we go on to the next step. Now the next part of this test, you can see how the bleed through on this is not really what I wanted. So what I'm going to do is cut out another letter and cut out a piece of the yellow, and hopefully the objective is to see if by putting double or maybe even triple decals, and I can put the same decal one on top of the other infinitely. This is smooth. You can't even feel where the decal, if the 2 coats are clear, where the decal ends. It almost doesn't need to be sanded out. Okay, now the trick would be, we don't need to get it right on top. The idea is to see if the white, once you double up on it, if the white becomes acceptable. And I got to move this around a little bit and blot it. And this is just one way. I got to get that address with the vinyl that Rich gave me, just in case we're not happy with this. I mean, so far we're just using water-soluble decals, but vinyl is certainly another choice. Now here's the yellow, and this is the part of the test that I want to see how yellow the yellow gets when you go over yellow. Oh yeah, perfecto mundo. The trick with this is going to be is just double up on them. Have a sad feeling that's going to be the answer to this, is double decals. Can you imagine? You can see, I'm not sure of the video, because the video, and of course the color that comes out on a TV screen is dependent on the settings you have on your TV screen also, as well as the DVD or video. But this gives you some idea. And when it's doubled, it's absolutely acceptable. Now, Dave has already, again, I've said this already, but it's tomorrow morning. We're going to have to sit on a porch and wait for the FedEx guy. He's sending it overnight, and we're going to get his whole decal kit. See what else we can learn, but right now you can see the difference in the yellow. The yellow is brighter. The white is acceptable even over red if you double it. The trick is if you double it. I think doubling it is going to be the answer. I think that's going to be, and if it is, then, well, the choice is I could paint the wing red and then just deal with putting 2 sets of decals on. That'll avoid an awful lot of backmasking too. But again, that's the next decision we have to make on our our quest for decal technology here. And we're going to be learning little by little in the next couple of days, right up to the point that these letters are on the plane. Now while we're waiting for those decals, I got a little time here, and I thought I'd pull off the back mask, laid out a new piece of, this is 3/32 tape. I custom cut it because I didn't want 1/8 inch. Everybody knows what thickness 1/8 inch tape is, and this will look a little more custom anyway. Now I need to seal only the inner edge. Only the inner edge. Anyway, maybe able to get this sprayed even tonight, I don't know. I also took the tail section, painted that little piece black. Looked at it with the possibility of making those little bars silver. Didn't like the way it looked. Wound up making the whole thing black. And painted inside where you would see the scoops. Got that all brushed, painted black. Just so when you look into the scoop area, you don't see red and silver and various colors. Anyway, we'll get this, and then I got a back mask very carefully. I don't want to put any tape on the red. I don't have to. Just want to catch it at maybe 1/8 of an inch like we did on the last tape. Now the idea here is to get as little tape as possible. And I'm looking hopefully less than 1/4 of an inch as I back mask this. The paint is still relatively fresh. Now we'll do this. What I'm going to try to do is just do it piece by piece by piece by piece, and not have any big giant pieces of tape touching this at the end of the back mask. Okay, we're ready to spray. Now, the only problem is this becomes a multiple step process, and I like to try to do it all in one round, I guess is the right word, if I can. I try to use the method very similar to what I've used on the B25 and on the A26 and on the Tiger Cat. It's really a lot simpler than it looks. And it's getting the window shading pretty much the way that I'm happy with it. But if you follow through step by step, one of the tricks is I like to try to do this and start it and finish it all in one operation in a course of maybe an hour or hour and a half. and not let the tape sit on the plane overnight if I don't have to, and not let the colors dry up too much, because what I want them to do is the opposite of a normal paint job. I want them to blend in. Now if you remember all the old tradition type planes with the green canopies, that was my little trademark for a while. And I got pretty good at doing green, but now we're into doing blue. And the first step is I like to take, if I can here, and just take my airbrush. And it really doesn't matter which step you do first. You have to overlap them and get them all to blend in. Now what this is, the first thing I'm going to shoot is, because I had some of this mixed from doing a Tiger Cat, this is some Brodak Candy Apple Blue with a little bit of pearl in it. You just add the pearl, or you can buy Brodak pearl paint. So let me just get a feel for. Now obviously what we want to do is leave the inside, the complete middle of the canopy a lighter color, darker toward the outside, and then right at the very end make it black. So let me get a feel for how this is going to start flowing. And the thing is to get it to blend, not to get defined edges. Let me just see if that looks okay. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be okay. See how I'm leaving the middle? Around the edge. And this has just the ever so little pearl in it. Now see, because this goes on with an airbrush relatively dry, what we want to do is get all the colors on, and then hopefully the last thing, get a coat of clear right over everything and just let it blend in. Now I'll kind of let that sit, kind of look at it from, well, we want to make it just a little bit more. A lot of this is just by eye. You get the airbrush to be further away. Yeah, it looks a little bit better. It's all in the eye of the beholder anyway. It's always better if you're wrong to be a little bit too light. You can add a little bit of darkening color, but once you darken it up, you got to go back and spray silver or white pearl, and it gets, let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks kind of okay. Okay, so the next step is going to be just let this dry. While it's drying, I'm going to change the paint in the airbrush. Now what's important at this point is to get all of the pearl paint out, because the candy apple, now what I'm going to do is have candy apple blue on top of this. Candy apple with no pearl, so what will happen if I have some pearl in here, it's going to go a long way. Even just a little bit in here is a real, well, you don't get the full effect of the candy over the pearl that I'm looking for. And again, you can buy candy apple paint right from John Brodak. You can buy the pearl. And if you're looking for real custom stuff, it's obviously you can just contact Bob Brookins and send him your firstborn or whatever. Now, and the only reason I would bother cleaning the gun this well right now, because the colors are very similar, except this color is going to be right out of the candy apple jar, just the way you would buy it if you bought it from Brodak or from me. And of course there's 4 or 5 candy apple colors, but really one jar like this is all you need to do the better part of a plane. And if you haven't picked up the tips or seen the tips on the Candy Apple Brodak video, that's an excellent little way to learn about candy apple colors in more detail. Now one of the things I always look at is the edge. If the edge, the little dots at the edge of an airbrush job get too big, you lose the effect of having all the colors blend in. This looks, for some reason, looks about right. But again, a lot of those tips are on the Candy Apple video, and they're good tips too. You see how quickly that accents it? It doesn't take much. And now we have some of it that has candy apple and pearl, and some that's just candy apple. Even if I just go right around the edge like this. But the trick is, if I were to just leave this without putting a coat of clear on top of it, what would typically happen is it doesn't blend, and you can see all little dots. When you shoot the clear over it, that's when it all just blends. Now, if it's wrong when we do that, then we can go back and touch it up, or if we want to change it or make it a little bit different. I'm not sure you can see that under this kind of lighting, but we really do have a nice effect there, and it doesn't take a lot of work. Now what I'm going to do is darken up the edge, and I'll explain why. Because the last coat that's going to go on here, I'm going to put some black in the candy, so it'll be even darker. So it's going to fade from one color to the other, and you could use green, you could use, you can invent the colors. And the nice thing about doing this is you can practice. You just take a tin can and make a fake canopy shape on it. Now when I look at that, let's see, and I've got to look at it from a lot of different angles. That has the look I like. And you'd be surprised how important it is to keep that center just totally silver. There's got to be a spot on it that has no blue on it at all, and in this case we've stretched it back. Now the last thing is going to be, I'm going to take the candy apple out, take a little bit of candy apple and a little bit of black, and just shoot the exact edge of that, and that'll just highlight it and make it pop. Now many times what I do, and again I want to test this, I know I have the blue, I want to do my edging, I try to get that pressure way down, 5, 6 pounds, 7 pounds, slightest amount of pressure, material real thin, because this edge is going to be one of the defining features. And I want to start, and this is the way I've learned how to do this, keep the slack on this. I want to start on the tape. You see how I'm painting the tape? And then I just want to work my way up onto the edge. I don't want to start right on the edge, because I just want to catch an edge on that. It acts like a shadow. And many people have used these videos that I made on painting canopies, and there are several, the Bombers, the Tiger Cat, D. Rice, Rich Oliver, that have all had really good luck doing it this way. You get some really nice definition. Now, if I'm happy with that, and I've got to sit and think about if I'm happy, because it's still not too late to change. Some of the things that I might want to do at this point, if I've made it too dark, is to just re-silver. Put a little pearl in with some clear and just go right in the middle. That's one way to do it. You can also go over to black, put a little bit of pearl or metallic B25 silver in the black to give it that little accent. Again, the easiest way I know of to do this is to pretty much just go back and forth until you have it the way where you're happy with it. And again, I always would start on the tape, just to, a lot of times these guns spit, as careful as you are with them. And then just let the gun walk its way right up into where I'm going. And with this really ultra low pressure, you're getting almost no paint on there, and we shouldn't have a big giant paint line either, as a side benefit. Now the trick is sit and look at it, make sure you're happy, and once we're happy with it, we'll shoot a coat of clear. Okay, that's dried long enough that I'm just going to try now to just see what the blend is going to look like. I just want to seal and blend everything in. As soon as it looks wet, I'm done. and the idea is to get both sides done at once if possible. I don't want to put on a mountain of clear here. I just want enough that it melts all the little airbrush dots and blends everything. I call it a blending coat. I'm not sure what the right word is. I don't know how I get the little spot right here I want to get. Now it's just a question of letting that dry up. Come back to it in the morning, and before I pull the tape off, I want to see if I'm happy with the blend. You can see the blend worked. I think it worked out pretty well in terms of keeping that center area where you normally would see the sunlight on a windscreen. Let it blend into blue like that and just let it fade in. And if wrong, better to be a little bit on the silvery side than on the too dark side. When it's too dark, I think it loses something. Personal taste, personal choice. We're going to put that aside to dry. Come back to it tomorrow, pull a masking tape, and see if we're in love or if we're getting divorced. What do we always do when the dope is drying, especially our canopy dope? End of day, end of night. What a nice hour or so of running the trains. This morning I can't wait to see how the cockpit dried up. It looks like a cloudy day. We were supposed to get some nice weather, but I don't know if we're getting cheated or not here. At least we're not getting cheated out of birds. See how that cockpit dried up. It looks nice from every angle I can see here. Now it looks like the next thing I want to do, I want to take it outside, take a look out in the sunlight, even though it's not bright sun. And if I'm happy with it, it'll be time to pull off the masking tape. And very, very carefully, and a good John Brodak tip, if you're in any doubt at all that the tape is going to pull paint up, use a little heat gun and just warm it up, slightly warm to the touch. Good tip from John. Now the only thing left here is to carefully pull away the edge tape. So far I think that looks real nice. Not that I'm prejudiced or anything. And I was trying to avoid that look of, that it looked like a smoothie or something. Not sure I got that. Anyway, when I took it outside, even though it wasn't real sunny, you could see that it had a nice look and it complements the red real nice. And of course it'll only get brighter once we put clear and buff it out and whatever. All of the little things that are going to go on top, the finishes. And the final detailing, of course. Now, whenever I've had to pull tape away like this, now this is dry overnight, but again, I'm always skeptical about tape. Tape is one of those variable things. I want to get a nice crisp edge around that stripe, and because we've put multiple coats of paint up here, it can tend to be a thick edge. I'm real careful here.